Did your parents ever say, "We didn't have therapy, we just dealt with it"? Or maybe they worked 60-hour weeks, barely talked about feelings, and called it love. If you grew up with Gen X parents, chances are you felt something was always just a little off. Not because they were bad parents, but because of what they went through. Today, we're diving into the psychology behind Gen X parenting, and it might just change how you see your entire childhood. Who are Gen X parents? Gen X, born between 1965 and 1980. They're the parents of today's millennials and Gen Z. They grew up as the original latchkey kids, coming home to an empty house, no helicopter parents, no participation trophies. Their childhoods were shaped by skyrocketing divorce rates in the 70s and 80s, economic instability, and a cultural message that said, "Figure it out yourself." So what does a generation of kids who had to emotionally fend for themselves grow up to become? Parents who don't always know how to talk about feelings because nobody ever taught them. Psychology research shows that children who grow up without consistent emotional attunement from parents develop what's called avoidant attachment. Gen X kids were often told, "Stop crying, you're fine, stuffen up." So they internalized their emotions, and then they passed that same pattern onto their kids. Not out of cruelty, but because it was all they knew. A 2019 study in the Journal of Family Psychology found that parental emotional dismissiveness is strongly correlated with higher anxiety in adult children. Sound familiar? Gen X parents valued self-reliance above almost everything because they had to be self-reliant as kids. So they gave their children a lot of independence, sometimes too much. Psychologist Dr. Jean Twenge's research shows that this hands-off style, while producing resourceful kids, also created a generation, that's us, with higher rates of loneliness and lower emotional validation. They meant to raise us strong, but strength without emotional support has a cost. Many Gen X parents were the first generation where both parents worked full-time. They showed love through DOIing, working hard, paying bills, keeping the lights on. But research in developmental psychology tells us children primarily feel loved through presence and verbal affirmation, not just provision. This gap between how Gen X showed love and how their kids needed to receive it, that's where a lot of the distance came from. Growing up with emotionally avoidant parents can lead to a few common psychological patterns. 1. People-pleasing. When emotional needs go unmet as a child, we learn to earn love by being good enough. 2. Difficulty identifying emotions. It's called alexithymia, literally difficulty naming what you feel inside. 3. Hyperindependence. We don't ask for help because we were never shown it was okay to need any. But here's the thing, understanding. Why our parents parented the way they did doesn't excuse it. But it can free us from carrying it forward. Gen X parents were also the first generation to start therapy in large numbers, the first to start questioning their own upbringing. Many of them are trying, just in the only language they know. Psychologist Dr. Dan Siegel says, "The greatest gift you can give your child is to make sense of your own life." Gen X parents didn't always get that gift, but maybe, just maybe, we can break the cycle. Because understanding their psychology isn't about blame, it's about insight. And insight is where healing begins. So if you grew up with Gen X parents, what patterns do you recognize in yourself? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this video gave you even a tiny bit of clarity, share it with someone who needs it. You never know whose mind it might open.